welcome back. Dealer Talk, episode 4. Super excited today. We have an amazing guest. I can't wait to introduce him. Before I do that, let me check in with Mr. Eric Nelson, my co-host. Eric, how are you feeling today, sir?
You know what? I'm highly motivated, family. I'm excited about today's guest, not only as the knowledge base, but just as the friendship that's budding and blooming. So pretty fired up.
Yeah, man, me too. So this person that we're going to have on is somebody that has a lot of experience just in business in general. Somebody that I'm excited to have on because I think the conversation is going to, because of his background and just the vast amount of experience in business that he has. I think the conversation is really going to bring in some insights based on his experience and things that are going to be valuable to the automotive industry, to the people that are in the business listening in. So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Bill Schomburg. Bill, how you doing, sir?
Good morning, Herb. I'm well. I'm excited and grateful for the opportunity to chat with you and Eric this morning, and humbled by the invitation. So it's a great morning.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but we're excited to get into it. So before we do that, though, for the listeners, can you share your background, your experiences, and what you're currently doing?
Absolutely. I began my professional career as a horse trainer. I was born and raised in Nebraska. My mother provided a love of horses, and at the young age of 16, I experienced some really undeserved success. I guess hard work does pay off, but I found out that you could make a living training horses for other people. And I parlayed that experience into a 20-year career where I had a shingle hung out, but it's been a better part of 40 years of working with horses and people in different types of clientele, all different disciplines. I didn't do any horse racing, but all types of competitive performance horses, all types of breeds, and just the opportunity that provided was to meet people and to work with individuals from all walks of life. The level that I competed at, the people who could afford those types of horses had disposable income created by their success in business. And so I was able to be exposed to and work with and assist people in that strata and get to know a little bit about what a successful business looks like. I got married when I was 42 years of age, and I became a stepfather, a husband, and a new business owner at about that time. From the horse business, I transferred into the synthetic grass industry, and I built sports fields, different surfaces for colleges, high schools, mostly acting as a subcontractor until a later part of that career. And again, got to meet people, different types of projects, whether you're working for a pro team, a high visibility college, or the local high school. And so it offered me amazing insight and opportunities to work with all different types of people in all walks of life. And what I've learned about myself is I love people. And my most recent venture, I left the synthetic turf industry, kind of a low point in my life. My wife passed away from brain cancer at the end of 2016. And the company that I worked for in the synthetic turf industry, they could not have supported an employee any better than they did my wife and I. But with her passing, I tried to go back to work. That company is very high performing. It's a company called the Modes Group in Cincinnati, Ohio. Just give them a little shout out. But when I tried to go back to work, I wasn't healing well, wasn't resting, and knew that to honor the way that they had treated me, that I should step aside and let others kind of take my role. I was in workforce development for them. I trained customer-facing employees to build the best fields that we could. They're well known for their high-quality work. But as I then looked at the next stage of my life, what in the world was a former horse trainer and former synthetic fake grass guy going to do? And my brother had worked in the automotive industry for about 25 years on the technology side. And he and I began to discuss opportunities. And he had formed a company in 2014, Pleasant Purchase, Inc. And we decided to offer a digital marketing consulting service that could be remotely delivered. And we believe we can scale it to serve any number of dealers that understand the impact and power of digital marketing. So I've kind of gone on a little bit there, but that's kind of the nickel tour, if you will.
No, let me ask you this, because I think this can be utilized as a teaching talk. Now, in working with horses, as it relates to people, where do you see that? I mean, was it a benefit having that background as a horse trainer in dealing with people? Was it different? I mean, how do you gain trust from horses? What is your process?
Oh gosh, great question and insight, Eric. I literally had this conversation last night. Horses desire three things: food, water, and leave me alone. So you have to understand where motivation comes from. And in order to get them to cooperate, because we ask some pretty significant things from horses, carries around on their back all day, be happy doing it, perform intricate maneuvers for us, entertain us. So for about the first 5 years, I struggled as a professional. I had lots of clients, but I don't think I truly understood how to get along with that animal. And in the same token, when I did figure out the horse, I was still focused on the horse and not the relationship with my customers. And there was this light bulb moment when I realized that not only was I not communicating well, I wasn't creating healthy relationships. And when I figured that part out, and let me boil that down to a nutshell. When I figured out that it was more rewarding to assist someone else, to empower them to achieve results and win awards, or just have a better relationship with these expensive, frustrating animals, my life changed forever.
Because I'm reading through your profile here, so just bear with me. We got a little a heads up on your bio. But I read something that I wanted to bring to light because I want to know what that means to you. You wrote it. You said, hold on a second. It says Lot Talk focuses on the digital delivery of inviting culture of culture into your store. So I mean, what do you think? How does what you're bringing to the table compare with how it's being done now?
Well, great. Again, another great question. Thanks for being really in depth with that. In the short period that I've been involved with automotive and the long experience my brother offers, he is so focused on relationship that he'll walk past the sale just to have a good relationship. And that's not criticism. The importance of the salesperson interacting with the customer in a relational way, forming a relationship. We talk about digital marketing and leads and all those other things. The greatest paid advertising, it starts with the salesperson. That salesperson, they receive a commission for completing a sale. And we've heard conversations recently about that relationship that's established. That's what creates the referral and the return opportunities in a store, and especially for that individual salesperson. So if that is a healthy circumstance, the opinion that I look from, or the perspective I look from is, how do we tell that story in the digital realm to when that virtual visitor comes to the website? Do they experience the same thing that every other website creates, that being inventory, incentives, whatever the sale is for that week? And somebody recently said, of course a car dealership's having a sale. It's the weekend, isn't it? So all of those, if we look like everyone else in the virtual realm, we're going to get what everyone else is getting. And our opinion is there's a great opportunity for dealers to focus on their greatest asset, which is their people, and let the inventory speak for itself after a relationship has begun with an individual salesperson or the BDC or wherever it starts. Because that's the other great thing about, you ask about how does my experience in the horse business relate to automotive. Every single day that I walked into the barn, if let's say I had 20 horses that I had under my care, those 20 horses were different every day. Just like if I have 20 salespeople, if I've got 3 F&I guys, if I've got 2 general sales managers, if I've got a general manager, everybody comes in, it's a new day. And we have no idea who the customers are that are going to show up. So we have to continually be ready to serve those individuals where they are, not just where we are as an individual, as a team member inside of a larger organization.
That's powerful stuff. Herb, you got a question?
Yeah, I do. So, you kind of caught my ear there for a second, because I was having a really good question or conversation with a decision maker at a dealership, and we're talking about the difference between SEO and SEM. And this person kind of had a mixed view when it came to that. Like he kind of thought that the strategy was the same, right? And obviously, SEO is more content based, where SEM is about keywords and getting the customer's intent, capturing the customer's intent on search engines. And you talked about creating a story, right? If the dealer, if that experience is the same from website to website, then you're going to pretty much get the same results, which I totally agree with. So my question is, with what you've done, what you've seen, what are some ways that you think that some dealerships, can kind of paint that story, right? And do it in a way that's different, that's more engaging, perhaps, that's going to differentiate them from the rest?
Well, I think there's two opportunities, Herb. And I always go again from experience. The company that I worked for in the turf industry, the Modes Group, they were built on a culture, a really positive, influential leader. He believed in culture from the get-go, and he's been in business since 1976. When I met him in 2005, we engaged across a meeting table in his office, and we didn't talk anything about how do you build an artificial turf sports field. We talked about our lives and different experiences and lives, and just like he got to know me as a person. So you translate that to the automotive store, the dealer store, and whether it's in a large group or just a standalone rooftop, the culture starts from the top. And because we're all different, each store has that unique circumstance to tell their story. And let me give you a couple of quick, really cool examples, or what have struck me. I shouldn't say cool examples. There's a guy on LinkedIn, I'm sure both of you know him, Bowtie Campbell. That guy is amazing. Now, not all of us can be Bowtie Terrence Campbell. It's impossible. He was born and gifted with a unique perspective and experience that created who he is today. But each store probably has someone inside the store that could be that individual. And the trick is, does the individual fit inside of the team with their experience, with the way they see themselves, with the way they see their team? And that's where management and culture comes in. I just made a connection this week with a GM. His name's Stephen Mason. And I just believe the algorithms of LinkedIn had been hiding him from my feed, because the 3 or 4 days that we've been connected, I'm just enamored of the culture, the leader that he is. Leadership, in my opinion, is positive influence. And influence can be positive or negative. We make a choice of what it's going to be. So if you take a dynamic, positive, influential leader that is permeating that culture, that good culture throughout his store, there's a unique story there to tell. And that can be translated through video, through pictures and images that represent those interactions inside the store. And it just takes somebody that can walk around the store and capture those moments. But it has to be a dedicated effort. This is a long-term strategy, because how did we get where we are? The internet's been around about 20 years, and it's only really been, the potential has only really been ignited for, say, the last 6 or 7. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it totally does. And, I like what you're saying there, because I personally, this is my own personal view, but I consult with dealerships on a regular basis. In my current role, I cover 6 different states, so I'm exposed to different markets and different ways of doing things. And the one thing that I see that's consistent is, I feel like there's a gap in our industry when it comes to content creation. Right? I don't think that we do enough with the opportunities that we have. And what I mean by that, for example, I think dealerships have a great platform with their websites and all the traffic that's going to them to do, things that are different, like a blog on their site, but something that's updated regularly, right? That some effort's being put in there. The ones that I see are maybe have 1 or 2 posts, and then after that, there's nothing. So that's obviously not going to work. But, something that's done consistently, 2, maybe 2, 3 pieces of content created every single week. Using social media, I don't see that's being utilized to its full potential. I mean, I see some of the ads like, 9% APR and things like that, whatever, but that's not the you're not going to get the value on a social media platform with that type of reach, right? Or with that type of creative, rather. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I see that myself. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So what about this? So I always have a lot of conversations when it comes to digital strategies on reporting, and obviously the conversation is something like this. Yeah, we see, okay, we're driving more traffic to the website, but I'm not seeing any sales, right? What is your take on that? What do you think dealers can do to, kind of, is it a mind shift change that needs to occur where the digital is measured in activity and clicks and visits, or there's a specific way that you can measure that activity where you can give the decision makers at dealerships what they want, which is, I want to see more sales, right?
Great question. What we've learned in the brief period that we've actually been offering our consulting remotely, if you ask a dealer the question, if I bring, are more leads going to create more sales? Or you say, what would it take to sell 20 more units next month? Referring strictly to the digital marketing side. The dealer immediately, or whether you're talking to the DP, the GM, whoever it is, they immediately go to the obstacles that are created, imagining we're going to sell 20 more units next month. And there's 2 points to what I'm trying to offer, and I'll finish this one, then I'll get to what I think is a more important one. But if you ask a dealer, there's a quick funny side story. If you ask a dealer, if I put 20 more buyers in your door next month, can your sales staff close them? They immediately say, of course they can. They're looking for those quality opportunities developed through the DM, whatever it is. But if you put the buyers in the door, the sales staff, they know their closing rate. I had a great conversation with a dealer in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he changed his sell board to an appointment board. And the thing I loved about him was he knew his closing rates, he knew his close against appointments. I mean, it was pretty powerful. And so instead of motivating his staff to close, which they already did well, he motivated them, look, guys, if you'll at least set one appointment a day and 2 on the weekends, we're going to hit our numbers and we're going to sell exactly what we are selling right now. And then we can move that up. Maybe you can't set 1.5 appointments a day, but the overall average, as they bump up their appointments, then they're going to maintain their good close rate because they know how to do that. So it is taking that virtual visitor of the website, using the digital marketing efforts, whatever it is, AdWords, all the options to drive the visitor to the website and through a good experience on the website that demonstrates culture into the showroom floor so the sales force can do their job. On the other side of that question, you talked about reporting and metrics and what have you. There's a wonderful, it's about a 70-minute video, Dealer Refresh. Hope it's okay to reference different educational opportunities. But I watched it twice. I took 2 hours and 20 minutes to watch this video. A man named John Berna, who I've not met yet, but I set an appointment with him. He was talking with 2 other individuals, and forgive me, I can't remember their name. Maybe we can post a link to it. I can provide it to you. But they talked about the history of metrics and how reporting and all of the data that is, dealerships create a massive amount of data and the tracking and all the things that go with it and the marketing companies that have tried to help them. But their premise, the question they asked was, is data dead? And there's one key piece that stuck out to me. Over the last 4 to 5 years, if the dealers are spending X on their marketing, on their digital marketing, and they have all this data, they've invested per store $7 to $8 million. And what do they have to show for it? What are they doing with that data, those metrics that have been created, the potential for that? So on the dealer side, what's the DP interested in? What's the GM interested in? How many cars are we selling? So if they're not looking at and using that data, is it really valuable? We've been told that it is, but how is it really valued? And moving forward, their premise is, 1, because of some legislative changes that are coming, 2, because of how the market, the in-market buyer is shifting their perspective. I saw a stat recently, 40% of people with a smartphone have deleted an app recently. And then I saw in the same report, 6,000 new apps are introduced daily in the world.
Wow.
So I've talked about digital disconnect, all this. It all comes back to what the horse taught me and what people in the horse business and then people in the turf business taught me. It's all about human nature. Be a student of human nature. Know what your team does well, and then put processes in place that support your people. If you don't have good processes, your people issues can be covered. And if you don't have good processes, how do your people trust that what you're doing? We all make mistakes, but if there are continual missteps in supporting your people with poor processes, you lose trust. And in culture and relationship, trust is we all know it's the single most valuable thing, and it's the most easily broken. So it can be a downward spiral, which of course is not good, but it can also be a really significant shift in how we look at just the simple things we do. I'm a KISS guy. Keep it simple, stupid.
I like that.
Hey, Bill. So, I mean, listen. Number one, I mean, the information that you're providing, it's just, I mean, it's so well received. Thank you for just being with us today. Here's I'm going to make a bold statement and see whether you agree with it, you don't agree with it. But we talk about, the internet's been around for 20 years, and just now it seems like within the past 8 years or so that dealerships are really scrambling to try and gain a foothold. I mean, I think that what the internet does, what social marketing does, as a dealership, from a dealership aspect, it just exposes us. What I mean by that is this: it just exposes us whether we really have the culture that is inviting for the dealership. Because I know that the old car guy mentality is just to run through folks as fast as humanly possible to hit the bottom line gross for the day, for the month, for the year, blah blah blah. But I think that what the internet and social marketing again has made it a much more pure system for selling cars. What I mean by that is that you had better have the culture that allows you, you better have the service that allows you to continue to do the business from today and for the next 15 years. So I appreciate the internet so much so for it's like the cutting edge of a knife. I mean, it really exposes dealerships for what they do right, but more importantly, what they do wrong. And quite frankly, listen, if they're caught up in just the numbers game, then I don't have a lot of sympathy or empathy for those folks. They need to be exposed and they need to be dealt with accordingly and put out of business. I think I'd love the internet for that, and social marketing for that exposure. I mean, and it's. I know I'm talking a lot about me, but what do you think of that?
I love when the internet. So I became involved with the internet in 1994, and I worked with a trade show services contractor. We developed the trade show idea on the internet. We worked with a pretty large entity. Eventually, that entity bought us out. But at that time, the conversation was the internet is a micro look at macro society, meaning the internet, just as you said, and you said it very well, the internet exposes us for what we are. And gosh, I'm trying to think. That exposure, we either choose to, and this is a choice we make daily with or without the internet. We either choose to get better or we're not getting better. And I'm sure you, Eric, experience it. I'm sure you, Herb, do. From your digital marketing experience, what are the opportunities that the dealers that you talk with, what are some of the things that they've done to improve that aspect? I'd be curious to know what you see, Herb.
It's like I mentioned earlier, there's, and it resonates with what you were talking about regarding differentiation, right? I think that there's just not a lot of it. You know what I mean? And and to relate back to what Eric was saying, the cool thing about it is that it's very easy to differentiate yourself in the automotive industry today, in my opinion, because everybody's doing it the same way for the most part. So when you do something that's a little bit different, it just you stand out, right? And that's going to attract people to you. So it could be something simple. Like, for example, I consult with a store that's in a very small market, It's a single point store, and they have a huge impact with a Facebook initiative that they started a few years back, where they put recipes. Right? It's not related to the car business, but everybody eats, and everybody goes to that. Everybody goes.
Great idea.
Everybody goes there every week to their Facebook page to get the recipe of the week. Right?
My gosh.
And then, they've actually had people come into the dealership and buy and be like, oh my God, your recipes are so awesome. And, we feel like we owe you, right? So when you put this information out there in the right way, because if you go to Facebook to put, come buy my car, 0%, everybody does that. You know what I mean? But nobody's doing the recipe thing, right? So customers go day in and day out. They feel they owe the dealership now, right? Because they've been provided with this value that has nothing to do with automotive at all. But when that customer is on to buy a vehicle, what do they end up doing? They end up going to that store because they feel a debt, if you will. You know what I mean?
Bingo. It reminds me, there's 2 points. One's a quick story. I was in a store in northern Kentucky, and I'm talking to the GM, but I'm looking over at this salesman's desk, and there was no missing the fact that this guy was a fisherman. So this happens to be a Ford dealer, northern Kentucky, great fishing, outdoor activities. Guess who everybody in the area came to because of this guy's reputation as an outdoorsman? They came to that guy, and he loved it. I was there 20 minutes, and we didn't talk about cars for a single moment. We talked about, he was telling stories about the different customers that he had pictures. He didn't have a picture of them with their car. He had a picture of them with their fish or their catch from the different outings that they'd had. And so there's a great opportunity to highlight the things, as you said, Herb, that differentiate each store. Because in every store, there's that opportunity. It's just not been valued as highly as it could be. And in my opinion, as I try to learn something every week, and the perspectives, it dawned on me from the OEM side, the way that they require the reviews, and you've got to have a CSI of X, and if you fall below this, you miss the incentives, blah, blah, blah. Well, what does that, it's like unintended consequences. What does that mindset create? Well, the review becomes more important than the relationship. And I get it. The reviews are important, but it's been made unnecessarily important. Too much weight has been put on it. And so now I don't believe technology is a solution. Technology is a tool that, if it's used well, enhances what's good. But if it's used poorly, it highlights what's poor or what can be improved on. And there's a perfect example in the marketplace today. There's a tool that some dealers are using that generates their reviews for them. And whether that's good or bad, a GM made a statement to me talking about this tool, which they in fact use, and they love. I mean, they've upped their total reviews. They've doubled those. Their Google rating has increased from 3.7 to 4.3. I mean, they love this. But the GM made a telling statement. He said, this tool doesn't do anything that we couldn't have done ourselves. It just makes it so we can check and see what's happening. And it's kind of a key component for me. When technology forces us or allows us, and you can choose what you want to be, to babysit, it means that our culture did not create the real environment that we desire. Because what do managers get sucked into more often than not? Have you ever sat in a sales meeting and the sales manager is asking each individual in the meeting, what about this unit? What about that unit? What about these numbers? Well, in reality, the sales meeting should be, everybody knows what those are. That information could have been provided previously, and the sales meeting could be more about what's our plan for next month. So I'm not trying to pick on sales managers. It's just an example of when our time is devoted to making sure someone else is doing their job, we have a process problem.
Right on. Yeah, no,
does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. Yeah, I agree. So, obviously we could go forever, man. This has been great.
We could go forever.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this topic. I enjoyed having you on. Hopefully we'll get a chance to have you back on so we can continue, but we are out of time. So I want to give you a chance to let people know how they can get in touch with you and, how they can reach out. But before I do that, I always would like to end with one quick question. I know we're out of time, but I got to ask it. Where do you see the automotive industry in the next 5 years and why?
Well, let me start with a quote. So I love to read, and I'm reading a book by a gentleman called Erwin McManus, and his book's titled The Last Arrow. And this quote is, "Let whatever lies ahead come, and whatever it costs you, whatever it demands of you, refuse to stay behind." Mm. And what I take that to mean, as I translate it, same thing. Talking to a general manager last week, they're in a landlocked situation. They're tripling the size of their property. Just round numbers, let's say their property would make them 100 unit a month dealer. They're moving 300 now.
Wow.
And they're adding another building. So the building's under construction. It'll open next year. And just round numbers, I just said to him, what do you spend, a couple million? And he laughed and he said, it's a little north of that. And my point in asking him that question was, per the OEM requirements, per the keeping up with the Joneses mentality, people are going to buy cars in stores. I don't buy the narrative that everybody wants to buy a car online. So we have to continue to develop ourselves, be the best that we can be personally, and focus. As the thing I love about Eric and his LinkedIn presence, if that dude's not focused and on fire, nobody is. So the idea that the industry is going to change, I'm that old guy. I'm 62 years old. The more things change, the more they remain the same.
Yeah.
And we just have to be sure we're doing everything we can. The one aspect, Herb, there are lots of good opportunities, qualified, respected, motivated individuals on the digital marketing side. Dealers have to evaluate, understand the talents of the people they work with, because there's plenty of talented, and then there's some that, just aren't as good as others. Let's just be truthful. Make sure that you're holding yourself accountable, your team, and especially your third-party vendors, because ultimately it's about getting more customers onto that showroom floor in those gorgeous facilities. And the facility itself, you'd never allow the grass to go unmowed out front. You'd never have dirty cars on your front line. Don't allow your web presence to reflect poorly on the virtual visitor, so that they use that good presence to drive those visitors into your showroom and sell them a car.
Well, there it is, folks. Great advice. I love that perspective. Bill, let us know really quick how we can get in touch with you, sir.
Cell phone number, area code 217-306-2555. Email bill@lottalk, LOTTALK.com. I'm active on LinkedIn, not really on the other platforms, but would be happy to help anyone. And that's the key. We're just here to serve, build a relationship. If we do business, great. But more importantly, if I can learn something from somebody, I'd love to hear from anybody who would like to contact us.
Right on. So there it is, folks. That's all we have for today. And as usual, we'll talk later.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, Free for iOS and Android.